Here at Dannenglor, the enemy holds and interrogates those they have captured in battle. The prisoners must be rescued swiftly.
Welcome back everyone to Skirmishing 102, where today we are going to start the Mirkwood skirmishes, and the first of these is Strike Against Dannenglor, where we have some members of the Malazrim who have been taken prisoner and we need to rescue them. Now they're being held by Maraval here, and in fact here is a Moraval now, so let's deal with the first of them. But there will be plenty more inside of this area. Now this particular skirmish has a medium number of mobs, meaning it's in between the values you would get in a high density skirmish such as Tuckborough and a low density one such as you would have in Thievery and Mischief. So this is right in the middle of this. So usually you get 2 hail mobs and a weak one, but sometimes of course you will get 1 hail and 4 weak instead. So sometimes you get quantity and other times you get a little bit more on the quality side. Not that against the lore master they're going to do all that much. There we go. Oh, let's get rid of that before we head on our way. That's the first area. This is the counterattack that you must face. So the rest of the counterattacks are nice to face because you are trying to help to defend the elves and rangers that you have just rescued, and it's sort of not good to go around letting them get killed right after you rescue them, right? Well, let's take care of this wound taker before it gives wounds. Yeah, it sounds like it's more like giving wounds than taking them, but that's another matter. And your turn. I got myself an injury. There we go. Now. And you also run into bats here. And the third type of mob you'll get are Limrafin. Now the Limrafin can be a problem if you're in group runs because the fire Limrafin can actually have a reflect on them. And that could be nasty. Fortunately in the solo run, most of the Limrafin will not have them unless you run into Ruin Galad, the encounter that I just triggered. Now I'm not going to trigger the encounter yet because I want to take care of these guys. Probably not worth throwing a lightning storm at these guys, so I'm not going to do that. Now, I usually prefer to take out, in solo, it's probably best to take out the light Limrafin first because they have this ability to blind you, so therefore it's harder to see, meaning that you will tend to miss a bit more. So I tend to prefer to use the light Limrafin against first and then take care of the fire. Now the trouble with the fire is they can have a reflect if they are signature or higher. Now since this encounter is a fire Limrafin who is okay, you could go against them. There we go. Is a fire Limrafin that is an elite. It does have that reflect into it, so you gotta be careful here. So I'll start out with giving myself a little bit of a heal there just in case. And I think that if I try doing the Murder of Crows, I will take damage from it. I've never quite experimented with that, but I do want to be careful here that I don't do things too fast. I'm throwing Waterlord on me every once in a while to take advantage of his healing. This isn't too bad if you are a class that has your own heal, but if you are a class that's all damage and no healing, it could be a problem. There we go. Let's get rid of that seared, because that seared could also be a little bit of a pain. And I think it's about to blow up, right? No, actually, it looks like it didn't blow up this time, but I did kill it in the end. There we go. So, if you can heal yourself and keep yourself paced properly, there's not too much trouble. If you try to blow it up in one big blast, you can get yourself killed. I sometimes refer to the group runs of this as Champion's Bane because of this. Now, I should note that in a solo run, because you only have the reflect there, I think there's one other encounter that also has a reflect, then champions actually like this one because you've got 2.5 hails at a time that you're facing in there, so you get a decent number of mobs in there, and they just like to gather things up, kill them very, very quickly, and can do this in under 5 minutes if they are really trying or whatever. Now, the disadvantage of doing that is if you go around trying to go at that rate, you're probably skipping the counterattacks. And the counterattacks, you can see you got the Rangers over here. So if you're not fighting the counterattacks, that means the Rangers are. And a good percentage of the points that you get for the skirmish marks are from keeping the defenders alive at the end. So you get a real nice chunk of them at the end. And of course, if the defenders die, you lose out on that particular part of the skirmish reward. Now, if you don't care about marks, then it might not. Then there shouldn't be any real trouble in that particular area. But if you do care about the marks, then you're not going to want them to die. Now, some of the champs, they're able to kill the final boss so quickly. Oh, I got that up just in time. That they could kill the final boss so quickly that the final boss is dead before any of the Rangers die. So that's used. So if you are able to do that, then you might be able to get full credit despite not keeping all the Rangers alive. Now, let's see. Let's just grab a little bit of healing in here. Now, we faced one of the two encounters. I don't know what the second encounter is. Or did I miss it? Now, let's see what we got here. Oh, the courtyard falls to your control and Ancient Guardian returns. Now, this is the other one that has a reflect. So, this is a wraith. And just as most wraiths are, they are able to... It does have a reflect if you put the reflect onto itself in there. But, hey, what type of damage does this do? Well, this does Balerion. So, Balerion... Since Lightning Balerion don't trigger its reflect, I think it's Fire, Westerness, and a couple like that. So it's not really that difficult of one if you take that into account in there. And as I said, it's the type of thing that raids have all over the place. In fact, you'll be running into that particular debuff on normal, non-encounter mobs in the later skirmishes of this series, because this is the first of the Mirkwood series, but there are 5 skirmishes in all that relate to Mirkwood. And they're all part of the expansion, The Siege of Mirkwood, where they first introduced skirmishes. Now you may be wondering, wait a minute, if they first introduced skirmishes in Mirkwood, then why do we have those 3 skirmishes in Moria, which are before Mirkwood, and that's because they took three instances that they had in Mirkwood that you had to do for the epic storyline. There were these three instances that required you to have 6 players. So when they decided to go towards making the epic storyline more soloable, they decided to change those 3 instances and turn them into skirmishes. So you could still play them with 6 if you wanted to, but you could also play them with 12 if you wanted to, or you could play them with 1, 2, or 3. I know you could technically play it with 4, but then you're playing the 6-player version in that case. So here we're going into there. So they made it so that you could scale it all and all that stuff, and I can't even completely remember. I think I only did the original version of those old instances maybe twice in there because of how difficult it was to find people doing it and all that stuff. So I managed to do it twice in there, but now of course I always do that line whenever I am doing it these days because of course they're skirmishes and I have a tendency of doing all of the skirmishes. Of course this time we are here in Mirkwood. Oh yes. There is a chest here if you are of high enough level, and if you haven't picked it up yet, you could consider that into there. You'd also go into there on the landscape version of Dannenglor, would also have the same thing. So this is Strike Against Dannenglor, the first of the Mirkwood skirmishes. This is one that comes relatively early in the Mirkwood storyline in there, and then there will be a break before the next one before you start having skirmishes in very, very rapid succession. So in many ways, this could be the first skirmish that you're facing back in the early days when they first introduced skirmishes for all these high-level characters. This was the very first skirmish that I ever did because I had already finished Moria, and besides, it was before they added those skirmishes into Moria. They added the skirmishes, and it was a couple of updates later where they updated the Moria so that it would use skirmishes instead of those instances. So for many players, this was their first skirmish, unless they decided to practice a little with a couple of the other ones that you get, that you unlock as you level up and all that. But anyway, this is Strike Against Dannenglor, the first of the Mirkwood skirmishes, but there are 4 more to go, and we'll get to those in the next episode of Skirmishing 102.